Huh? You seem alright. Not amusing though. While I was pregnant and before reaching the stable phase, I decided to head back to my parents' home. My mother-in-law came to the train station to see me off. However, at that moment, I suddenly felt like I was floating in the air. Desperately wanting to protect the baby I had longed for, I fell onto the train tracks, clutching my belly. Confused, I looked up at my mother-in-law, who was smirking down at me. It hit me then that she had pushed me. "What the hell are you doing?" I glared at her from the train tracks. Why would I want a grandchild with genes from a woman who can't even be a lawyer? No matter how cute, I don't want a child inheriting such stupidity. My mother-in-law laughed hysterically as she said this. I felt a chill down my spine at her attitude. The next day, after suffering a stroke that left her partially paralyzed, my mother-in-law, using a cane, glared at me saying, "It's a good thing you're back. You see, Jessica, it's because of the stress you've given me that I had a stroke and ended up like this." "Huh? You'll have to be my hands and feet from now on." She poked my belly with her cane, looking down on me, without showing any reason to do it. "Alright, let's leave the rest to the cops. My name is Jessica Martin. At 35, while studying for the bar exam, I'm working as a paralegal in a law firm. I met my husband Mike when he was a newly minted lawyer joining the same law firm. Mike was always full of justice and always passionately dealt with his clients' issues. When he asked for my assistance, I would passionately help with the investigations. Gradually through work, Mike and I became close. One day, after everyone had left the office and I was studying alone, Mike approached me. "Hey, studying for the bar exam, huh?" "Yes, I really want to pass it this time." "Well, I can help you out." "What?" From that day on, he would teach me almost every day. He would always explain things patiently. Then one day, after our study session, while we were out for dinner, he said, "Jessica, would you consider dating me with the intention of getting married?" "Really? Are you sure about someone like me?" Mike, who was 6 years younger than me and joined the law firm at the young age of 24, made me wonder if I was the right choice for him, considering his bright future. However, with his never-give-up attitude, he pursued me day after day. Won over by Mike's passion, I accepted his confession a month later. From the beginning of our relationship, we both had the intention of getting married, and we tied the knot 3 months into our relationship. Mike's parents had divorced when he was in high school. So until he started working, he lived with his mother. On the day I visited Mike's family home to introduce myself, I greeted nervously, "Hi, I'm Jessica." "Nice to meet you." Seeing me so tense, his mother kindly said, "Oh, Jessica, no need to be so nervous. Mike, you found such a sweet and wonderful lady. I'm so happy for you." Despite being 6 years older than Mike, his mother welcomed me warmly. A month later, Mike and I registered our marriage. We were both very busy with our jobs after marriage and hadn't given much thought to having children. But about a year after we got married, I fell ill and found out I was pregnant when I visited the doctor. "Mike, I'm pregnant." "Really? Awesome." When I told Mike about the pregnancy, he jumped with joy. I also informed my mother-in-law and she exclaimed, "Congratulations, Jessica," clapping her hands in delight. Around the same time I found out about my pregnancy, I failed the bar exam I had taken. I was shocked, since I believed I would become an attorney this time. However, being over 30 and experiencing the miracle of life inside me for the first time, I decided to focus solely on becoming a mother for a while. Given the risks of having a child at my age, I was filled with apprehension and doubts. Yet every day I felt joy, as I could feel the new life inside me growing stronger. When my morning sickness began, there was a work task I absolutely had to complete, so I stayed late at the office. While taking a short break and sipping on my caffeine-free herbal tea, I was suddenly overcome with intense abdominal pain, so severe I couldn't stand. I had a bad feeling. Without a second thought, I called a nearby hospital and took a taxi straight there. Upon arrival, the doctor's face turned pale and I was immediately taken to a treatment room. "I'm sorry, but this time..." The doctor began, informing me and Mike, who had rushed over, of the miscarriage. Losing the baby was devastating. Lying on the hospital bed, I turned away from Mike and sobbed silently. "Mike, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, Jessica. Losing the baby is heartbreaking, but I still have you." That's what matters most. His comforting words filled me with gratitude, guilt, and a profound sense of loss. Unable to hold back any longer, I cried out loud. The next day, my mother-in-law, concerned about my health, came over. It's a shame. Considering your age, it must have been tough to conceive. First of all, take it as a life lesson. As she sipped her tea nonchalantly, I couldn't believe my ears. Was she truly trying to comfort me? Her next words confirmed my doubts. If you want a child so badly, hurry up and try again. If you are unable to conceive naturally, consider fertility treatments. She laughed heartlessly. Honestly, having just lost a child, I wasn't in the right mindset to think about having another one right away. Yet my mother-in-law was not only pushing for another child, but also suggesting expensive fertility treatments. I was too shocked to reply. About a year after the miscarriage, I became pregnant again. Thinking of the first time, as soon as I informed Mike, he not only expressed joy, but also showed concern for my well-being. We've been given another chance at life. I want this baby to safely come into this world. What do you think about staying at your parents' home until you're past the critical phase? That might be a good idea. I can take some time off work, so maybe I'll take you up on that. I then decided, based on Mike's suggestion, to spend time at my parents' home until the 5th month of pregnancy. When I called my parents to inform them I'd be coming in a week, they were eagerly awaiting my return. And 3 days before I was due to leave, I wrapped up my work and began my maternity leave. However, the day before I was supposed to go to my parents, my mother-in-law unexpectedly stormed into our home. Jessica, why are you going back to your parents? Weren't you supposed to have the baby at a nearby hospital? I'm so sorry, Mike was worried about me and the baby. We decided it's best for me to stay at my parents' place until things stabilize. Oh my, when I was pregnant with Mike, there was no luxury of returning to my parents. Times sure have changed. She folded her arms and stared at me. Well, that's all right. This baby is our family's grandchild too. I'm concerned as well. I'll accompany you to the station. Thank you. When I seemed intimidated by my mother-in-law's imposing tone, she asked me about my train's departure time for the next day. She then said, I'll come over again in the morning before leaving. On the morning of my departure, right on time, my mother-in-law declared, I'll carry your bags to the station, so let's get going. She took my suitcase with a forceful attitude and roughly dragged it along. At the station, as we waited for the train, a station announcement came on. Standing at the very edge of the platform, I suddenly felt a lightness. And the next thing I knew, I was on the tracks. Instinctively protecting my abdomen, I looked up from where I'd fallen, to see my mother-in-law laughing and sneering at me from the platform. Oh, you seem fine. What a disappointment. What did you do? Why would I want a grandchild with genes from someone who couldn't become a lawyer? Even if the child is cute, I don't want one tainted with your stupid blood. Chills ran down my spine as I looked at her. Because of my fall, the train was temporarily stopped, causing an inconvenience to many passengers. Despite my anger at my mother-in-law, I felt guilty towards the other passengers. I took a seat at the end of the train, heading towards my parents' nearest station. The next morning, while I was still asleep, I got a call from Mike. Hey, sorry for calling so early. Last night my mom had a stroke. What? Is she okay? Yeah, she's gonna live, but it seems she's paralyzed on the right side. It's going to affect her daily life. I hate to ask, but can you come back? Alright, I understand. I came to my parents' home to protect my unborn child. But now, because my mother-in-law collapsed, my brief respite was cut short. Feeling deflated, but worried about Mike's unusually downcast voice and his mother's condition, I explained the situation to my parents, and hastily returned to Mike's family home. I'm really sorry, Jessica. You came here to rest, for the baby's sake, and now this. It's okay. How's your mom? She said she could get home on her own and didn't need me to pick her up. She's in a cab now, should be home soon. As the two of us anxiously awaited her return, we heard the front door open. Hobbling in with a cane, she glared at me. Mom, I was so worried. I'm glad it wasn't more serious. Are you okay? Jessica, you back? Did you miscarry again? No, the baby's still. I touched my stomach to show her the baby was okay, but she snorted and said, if you're back, it's just perfect timing. Jessica, because of the stress you've caused me, I've had a stroke and ended up like this. What? You'll be taking care of me from now on. But you're Mike's wife. You have an obligation to take care of your mother-in-law. She then laughed and jabbed my belly with her cane. I desperately tried to shield my baby from my mother-in-law's assault, clutching my belly and bowing my head. What are you doing? Do you intend to disobey me? I nearly lost my life because of you. Yet, here you are trying to bring a new life into this world, and it makes me so furious. I looked down, trying to hide my fear from her. Wait, understood? Let's leave the rest to the police. Huh? Reaching my breaking point with my mother-in-law's attitude, I half-laughingly told her. She just tilted her head, confused. She tilted her head in confusion. Do you remember the other day at the train station when I fell onto the tracks? I remember so. A police officer just came to this house because he wants to hear about what happened when the train stopped that day. What? Turns out, a station worker who happened to witness the moment my mother-in-law pushed me had filmed the entire scene. That video is now being used as evidence, and the police wanted to hear both our sides of the story. When I told my mother-in-law, she looked as if she had seen a ghost. That video from the station worker isn't anything special. So, do you want to check out the evidence together? What? How do you have a video that a station worker took? He gave it to me as evidence. In front of my shocked mother-in-law, I opened my smartphone and played the video. She watched intently, her eyes glued to the screen. That hand in the video isn't mine. Isn't that the same ring on the hand pushing me in this video that you're wearing now? I paused the video at the frame where the ring was visible and showed it to her. There are plenty of people with similar rings. That video could have been edited by the station worker. I'm upset. Delete it. I'll delete mine, but it's also been submitted to the police. I can't delete that one. What? Realizing that the same footage had been submitted to the police, my mother-in-law went pale and started shaking. I also told the officer I'm pregnant since I'm not showing yet. You told him that too? Yes. They were quite shocked when I told them everything. I informed her that I had recounted everything to the police. And her face went beet red in anger. What? This makes me look like a criminal. Well, aren't you? To think I have such a terrible daughter-in-law? Fuming with anger, my mother-in-law glared at me. But I calmly poured some non-caffeinated herbal tea into a cup and offered it to her. Here, drink this to calm down. Oh, this herbal tea? Do you remember? My mom got this for me to help relax pregnant women. Taking the cup from me, my mother-in-law gulped down the tea. Why are you giving this to me now? Did you know this tea isn't recommended for early pregnant women like me? What? The herbal tea my mother-in-law gave me when I was pregnant with my first child? At the time, I was so pleased with her thoughtfulness that I poured the tea into my water bottle every day and carried it to work to drink. However, when I miscarried my first child and was answering the doctor's questions, it turned out that the herbal tea my mother-in-law had bought was one of the causes. It came to light that the herbal tea she had purchased contained an ingredient that is not recommended for pregnant women. Recommended for pregnant women in their early stages. Without researching it thoroughly, I drank the tea and ended up going through the painful experience of losing a new life. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. If I had known, I wouldn't have let you, a pregnant woman, drink it. Shaking her head, my mother-in-law denied knowing about the tea's ingredients. Mom, when I got pregnant this time, you gave me the same herbal tea as a gift again. Was that on purpose? Of course not. Also, the aroma oil you gifted me to help me sleep better, the store clerk informed me that it's not recommended for pregnant women in their early stages. That can't be. When I showed the aroma oil bottle to my mother-in-law, she averted her eyes. You mentioned at the train station when I fell on the tracks that I have stupid genes that can't become a lawyer, right? Mom, you can't be serious. I'm sorry, it's not my fault. Both the aroma and the herbal tea were gifts I got for Jessica after hearing from a friend that they were good for pregnant women. Please believe me. My mother-in-law, paralyzed on her right side, looked at me and apologized. Please don't abandon me. Now that I've become like this, the only option is to rely on Jessica to take care of me. Sorry, I refuse. Why? Despite her pitiful eyes, I smiled at my mother-in-law and denied her caregiving request. How can you, as a daughter-in-law, refuse to take care of your mother-in-law? I am not your direct family, so I am not obligated to take care of you. Even when I spoke about the law, it seemed my mother-in-law couldn't trust me, so she turned to Mike to verify the facts. Mike, is that true? Jessica's right, Mom. Jessica isn't someone who should be taking care of you. Well then, Mike, why don't you take care of me? When my mother-in-law approached Mike's feet, she strongly grasped his foot with her unparalyzed left hand, desperately crying. Seeing my mother-in-law sobbing at Mike's feet was like watching a child. It was a pitiable sight, especially given her previously imposing demeanor. True, I'm not a lawyer yet, but with my paralegal work and the law studies I've done, I'm as confident in my legal knowledge as Mike. When I mentioned some laws about caregiving, it seemed my mother-in-law was genuinely surprised. When Mike gently shook off my mother-in-law's grip, she fell forcefully onto the floor. She gave money to my friends, calling it a severance, complained loudly to waiters when we dined out, and even pushed my pregnant wife onto the train tracks. Your irrational behavior for years. I'm not taking care of you either. I'll find you a good care facility, and you can live there alone. The mother-in-law, who had lovingly raised her own son, felt abandoned. She collapsed onto the floor, sobbing heavily. Hello? Is Mrs. Catherine Martin there? Please come on in. Hearing a policeman's voice from the entrance, Mike gestured for him to come inside, and the mother-in-law's face went pale. Mention of the police seemed to freeze the once vivacious woman, even with paralysis in her right side. You are Mrs. Catherine Martin, correct? Yes. We'd like to hear in detail at the station about the incident where your daughter-in-law fell onto the train platform. Will you accompany us? The mother-in-law was surrounded by several officers and resignedly allowed them to take her away. Later, the mother-in-law was interrogated at the police station. From stopping the train to pushing me, a pregnant woman, and my subsequent miscarriage, she was thoroughly questioned. Is our talk done? Please have mercy. Yes, it's true, I pushed my daughter-in-law onto the tracks, but I couldn't bear seeing a woman like her achieving her dreams of becoming a lawyer, getting married, and even having a child. You mean, she was getting everything I ever wanted. Marriage, becoming a lawyer, and having a child. I just hated her for that. In the end, the mother-in-law tearfully admitted to pushing me onto the tracks, but she vehemently denied causing my miscarriage. However, she couldn't escape the crime of pushing a pregnant woman. The mother-in-law became a criminal. And so, with paralysis in her right side, the mother-in-law had to spend some time in jail. Life in jail seemed to have many elderly inmates, like the mother-in-law, who needed care, and it appeared they couldn't indulge in any luxurious meals. Up until then, the mother-in-law, who used to behave so selfishly, had reportedly become much more subdued. Upon her release from jail, she moved into a care facility that Mike had pre-arranged, and it seemed she was living amicably with the other residents. However, about 6 months into her stay, the mother-in-law developed dementia as a post-stroke complication. Whenever Mike and I visited the facility to check on her, she would greet us with a bright smile and engage in small talk. Hello? It's such a lovely day today, isn't it? It seemed she had completely forgotten about her son Mike, me, and the rest of her family. The drastic change in the mother-in-law was initially shocking for both Mike and me. Yet, seeing her participate in activities, taking walks, and generally enjoying her time at the facility, surrounded by caregivers and fellow residents, she seemed as peaceful as a saint, which brought us relief. Later on, I safely entered the stable period of my pregnancy. Pregnancy and the baby inside me were growing healthily. Being on maternity leave and spending most of my time at home, once I finished my chores, I delved deep into studying for the bar exam, and took it when I was almost due. A few days later, I began to feel labor pains and rushed to the hospital. The midwife informed me that I was in labor. Before I could mentally prepare, I gave birth to a baby boy. The moment he was born, he let out such a strong cry that he surprised the midwife and nurses. Due to the suddenness of the labor, Mike, who had planned to be there for the birth, missed it. But when he saw our newborn son, he gently held him and smiled. He's so adorable. I asked, have we decided on a name for him? While holding our son a bit awkwardly, Mike turned to me and said, on the count of 3, why don't we both say the name that comes to mind? We both chuckled. Taking Mike up on his suggestion, we both blurted out a name at the same time. I knew it. Jessica, you were thinking the same thing. Mike and I laughed in surprise at having chosen the same name. Both of us, having a deep love for law and a strong sense of justice, had become lawyers. Considering the background of our family, we unanimously named our son Justice. A year passed, and our son grew big enough to walk on his own. Mike was hard at work as an attorney, and I was about to start my first day, not as a paralegal, but as an attorney, proudly wearing a brand new suit with my attorney's badge. Since the day my mother-in-law pushed me onto the train tracks, I learned that nothing good comes from envy or jealousy. Out of jealousy, she had pushed me, leading her to experience a stroke, time in jail, and eventually dementia, leading her down an unexpected path in life. Disturbing another's happiness out of envy is never a good thing. Whether good or bad, the consequences of our actions always come back to us. Every morning as I chase our lively son around the house and pin my attorney's badge to my chest, I am reminded of the fight for justice.